Welcome to Mostly Mondays with Meg's podcast. It appears at this moment that I'm not going live on YouTube, so I'm not sure what's happening there. I'm going to try one more time. Let's see. Okay, hi everybody. Hello. Okay, continue. Let's see what we have. Okay, hello. Oh, thank you guys for joining me. I am so excited to be broadcasting live, still playing with tech things. Apparently I'm not on YouTube today. So, I'm going to ask that my tech see if she can line up YouTube for me, and we'll worry about that later. So, if you were on last week, we started the conversation about self-esteem. Okay, so in on the outside, it looks kind of like a boring topic, but it's so relative to what's happening in our psychology and in our brains today. Most of what we're calling self-esteem issues are actually happening in the brain. They're actually happening because we have a negativity bias. And that's just from millions of years of trying to survive on planet Earth, okay? For the first time in history, probably in the last 50 years, has it become available for us to shift out of surviving and into thriving. But our brains are still in that negativity bias, looking for lions and tigers and oh me, oh my. And so the amount of brain space that positivity holds and can attract is actually fairly low, and especially if you have trauma, especially if you have a lot of trauma throughout your life. And so that accumulated trauma actually creates even more of a negativity bias. So a lot of times when people suffer with self-esteem, they think that they're broken or something's wrong, and it's actually just how their brain is wired. So the good news is we can begin to rewire that, but we have to be conscientious about rewiring that. We have to be proactive, right, about that. So thank you. Let's see. Challenge Faith, Andrea. Hi. As I mentioned last week on the podcast, I attended a workshop by, I just lost his name. Oh, goodness. What is his name? Bob Proctor. There we go. And he talked about how we can't get to higher levels of success as long as our self-esteem is down here. And the reason is that low self-esteem will keep sort of sabotaging or looking for negative or not allowing us to continue with positive steps. Have you guys ever experienced that? Of like, you start feeling better, or you start feeling good, and you start moving in a new direction. You start like, okay, I'm going to do these things. And then all of a sudden, like you get sidetracked, like something occurs and it takes your attention over to the negative side. And then you find yourself not following through. So if you find yourself avoiding things you know you need to do or things that you know would help you feel better, if you are not consistent in taking better action steps towards the things that you want, that's an indication that this is happening, okay? So a lot of people think self-esteem is just like negative self-thinking, right? And some people have that, and some people are aware of that, and other people, they're not even aware of their thinking. They just notice that they just keep sidetracking. Now, this can happen if you're uber successful too, and it can keep you from going to the levels at which you feel like you can. So this is I oftentimes in my personal practice work with high performers. And even high performers have this thing going on sometimes where they won't allow themselves to really reach for where they can because it's beyond what anybody else is doing. Or maybe they have imposter syndrome. Some of you may have that. And imposter syndrome is really just, I think it's overdone personally. But it's really when you just feel like you don't belong on that playground, for whatever reason, right? But that's really more about you being cautious and not really kind of avoiding next steps, right? So there's all these ways that we avoid taking the steps to creating the life of our choosing and the life of our dreams, right? And so this podcast today is all about that, and all about how we can begin to literally rewire the amygdala. That is that fight or flight part of our brain. We can actually create it to have a positive bias rather than a negative bias. And so what if it's not so much about a personal issue, self-esteem? What if it's just about rewiring the brain? Does that make it like a little bit easier to kind of think about, right? Is just we have to actually create a different scenario, because we're moving for the first time in history from surviving to thriving to what's the best life you can imagine, as opposed to how can I survive the day, which is, it's not very future seeking, right? So we're going to talk today about that and the things that stop us, the things that get in the way of us really moving in the direction of what we would really want to be creating, is really our sort of system going on high alert, especially when you go to do new things, right? Because the survivor brain wants to stay in control. It wants to keep everything the same. It wants to be able to control all the dynamics, right? And so anytime that we go to an area of life where we haven't been before, we try to go beyond into a new place and space of creation, we tend to end up, that survivor brain gets activated. And sometimes we don't even know. It's like, it might even show up as just like, I don't feel like doing that today. It could be really, really subtle like that. Or you just notice you were going to do all these things and then you didn't, right? And so we want to create a space of resourcefulness, a well where we feel safe, like the part of our brain that is the vagus nerve, that's rest and recover, or rest and digest as they call it. That is a place where we tend to do the things we need to do. We feel inspired, we feel creative, we move in the direction naturally of where we want to go. When we're not moving in the direction of the positive, it's generally because our fight or flight mechanism has been activated in some way. And so what's important to understand is you're not bad because you didn't take that action. You're not bad because you're avoiding or procrastinating or whatever you're doing. It's just that maybe what you didn't know is that your system got alerted because you were doing something new, because you were stepping into an unknown space. So today I'm going to talk about little ways that we can reprogramming it. Now, the ways that we do that are actually more simple than you might imagine. And I know that a lot of us have gotten sort of disenchanted by the positive thought movement. And there is a way that is useful, but unless we embody those positive things, then it doesn't change our brain. So for those of us who've tried the affirmations and it didn't work, you're still not broken. It's that you have to cultivate a way of bringing it into yourself and into your body, so that brain can really truly go into that rest place and go, okay, we're safe, we're okay, we're safe, we're okay. And again, if you've had a lot of trauma in your life, which some of the comments are suggesting, that, those of us who are seeking personal growth and development are oftentimes doing it because we know there's a better way. We feel it in every cell of our being, and we know we need support to get there. And we can begin to rewire our nervous system. Now, for a lot of people, maybe you have a breath practice, maybe you have a meditation practice. All of those are ways of embodying that restful place, that state, that resourcefulness. But a lot of times people only do that in the morning. And then by about 2, they're like, meh. So the process of really rewiring, we need to be doing that all the time throughout the whole day, so that our bodies can start to come into that place of thriving, of positivity, of even if something happens that's dangerous or scary, or maybe somebody pulled out in front of you or something, when you have developed this positivity bias, you will return to that restful, resourceful state in seconds or minutes, and then you don't have to sort of live in those spaces. So some very simple ways of creating more resourcefulness is you walk in nature, okay? But don't just walk in nature, breathe it in, feel it. Allow yourself to experience that positive feeling for maybe 20 or 30 seconds. We tend to, and what I mean by negativity bias is that we tend to, it's kind of like when you're driving along the road and there's a car accident and you're like, ring, and everybody slows down, right? We have this negativity bias. But like, we might be driving down that same freeway and there's a beautiful field of flowers, and we just overlook that because it's not relevant to being safe in the car, right? So that's a really good example of how we might take more time with the negative impact, the negative things. Like we might take a step and it didn't work out, so we're focused on that one mistake. Like I remember one time I was teaching a class and I literally had like 60 people, like just so happy, so positive. I had probably like 20 people that was the best class ever. One person is like, well, that could have been better. And I like, it's stuck in my craw. Have you guys ever experienced that? Where just that one thing, that one negative thing impacts you and you sit in that for longer periods of time. Well, what I'm talking about is like really changing that so that the positive things, you really take them in such a way as that you begin to embody it as that is who you are. That is your way of being in the world. And that one negative thing or that one mistake, and you might need to take feedback from that mistake. You might need to learn from that mistake. But if your bias is positive, then you can actually take that mistake and go, okay, what can I learn from this? And it doesn't actually, crank your head like the car accident, right? And you can actually start to really cultivate that ability to see, to experience the beauty of life, the positive things in life, because there are so many things to be grateful for, and there's so many opportunities and resources that are available to us to have better lives than our ancestors ever dreamed of. But the problem is that our brain is still sort of hardwired like our ancestors in that survival place. So, hi Butch. So we need to take some time and smell the flowers. And this may seem oversimplified, but in context of looking at it from the brain's perspective, if you were to take 20 things positive during the day, like simple things, like the cat in your lap, the perfect latte, whatever that is, but you just like take it in. You take it in and you just let it feel everything that it feels in your body. Every time you have a positive feeling in your body, a wave of relaxation, what if you just paused and breathed into that and just relished, that's a good word for this, relished that positivity, And so over time, we can begin to make the positive stick. We can begin to have a bias for all things good, all things that are contributing to our lives, right? And when we have this negative bias, that's one of the biggest reasons that we don't take action on things. And not taking action on things is where we lose confidence. I don't know if you remembered last week's podcast. If not, go back and watch it, because we talked about like when you have something negative that happens, or there's like you're not taking action, that impacts your confidence, right? Because confidence isn't intrinsic. Confidence is built, and confidence is built by taking action on things consistently that you want to have in your life, right? And so when your fight or flight is triggered, we go into avoidance and we stop taking action. So that actually creates the lack of confidence. So this rewiring of our nervous systems is so important because it allows us to seek out things that would be a positive impact on our lives, and it allows us to effectively take action and continue moving forward, even when things are scary or even when we make a mistake, so that we build a reservoir of positivity, a reservoir of feeling good, so that that can help us move in the direction of things that we want to be creating and achieving in our lives. So, as I mentioned in some of my promotions for this, I was going to give you an experience of building your reservoir. So, you guys up for that? We got to do that? Let's do it. Woohoo! So, this process is called being for yourself, right? So, one of the things that happens in self-esteem is that we're continually thinking why we can't, why we shouldn't, why we're not enough, all of that, right? And that's an indication that you haven't built that reservoir up. And again, I want to really state that it's a choice. It's a choice to actively, proactively seek this building up of positive energy, okay? So, so even just in this moment, before we go into it, I want you to see my background. Check this library out. This is an art sculpture, this tree right here. I don't know if you can see it. Look at this. Isn't this cool? In the middle of this library. How cool is that? Even just this setting, if you find it pleasing, take it in. I remember coming into this place and seeing this. And by the way, I'm at a resort in North Carolina called Dreaming Stone. And this is the library in Dreaming Stone. This is where people come to dream, to rest, recover, and dream. And by the way, if you haven't dreamed something new for a while, if you haven't been excited about something new for a while, it's because your stores are low, your reservoir is low. And sometimes we need some rest and recovery time and to fill that reservoir up so that we can start dreaming again. So sometimes it expresses itself in just not being excited about anything, right? So, being for yourself. Can you remember a time that you were for yourself, that you believed in yourself? Okay? See if you can bring that to mind. If you can't bring that to mind, think of a time when you were for someone else. Maybe a child, and you just were encourage them, you can do it, Johnny, and just bring that feeling to mind of being for yourself. For your possibilities. What would it be like to actually really have your own back with regards to what's possible for you? Now, take a deep breath in. Feel that in every cell of your being. And if a negative thought comes in, what would being for yourself do with that thought? Would you just let it pass? Because it's just part of that amygdala talking to you, right? It's not about faking it. It's not about pretending that thinking isn't there. It's actually just about returning to the space of well-being and good feeling and saying, okay, yeah, that thought's there. I'm just going to let it go, and I'm going to return to that place of being for myself. So taking a couple of deep breaths, and if you're somewhere where you could stand up and really embody a posture of, I am for myself. It's an interesting thing to me that a lot of people with low self-esteem are caregivers, right? They're so for other people. They're so you can do it. But for themselves, they're not for themselves. I would say that I have fallen into that category. I've helped thousands of people launch really successful careers and lives and everything else, and still sometimes I am not for me. I think about all the bad things that could happen sometimes when I am moving forward with a project, and I have to check myself, and I have to do these very same things that I'm telling you to do. And unfortunately, those of us who have had a lot of trauma, it probably is going to be a practice that we're going to have to embody for maybe years before it becomes our natural way of feeling and being in the world. So, I am not sure what's happening, but my Zoom just cut out. Okay, so I'm still live on Insta, so I'm going to keep going on this band here. So, so taking it in, feeling that sense of confidence, feeling that sense of being for yourself. Let it into every cell. Remember that your cells are made up of stardust, of everything that is the universe. You have the capacity of that which created all of the universes inside every cell of your being. Why would you not be for yourself? Why would you not be for yourself? Okay. Let it in. Let it in. Let it in. So, throughout the day, I'm going to invite you to put these fingers together and anchor in this feeling in your body. And throughout the day, let yourself return to this feeling. Anchor it in a few times. Maybe you could even turn it up and turn it up and turn it up. Take a walk in nature. Notice the little things and pause on them and let it remind you that essentially this universe is for you and you can be for you as well. Okay? So, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be putting a link below to a program I have coming up at the end of July called Self-Esteem is Sexy. And I have a sale going on till the end of the month where you can get it for $222. It's a Friday night and Saturday. And we are going to go deep into this rewiring process so that you can begin to come and create from the wholeness of who you are, from the power of who you are, and come get it embodied. This is also going to be live streamed around the world, so if you're in the Salt Lake area, come live. If not, you're going to get some live streaming capacities. You can take it in your jammies, and I will see you next Monday, same time, same bat channel.